Couple Shot Mindset.
So I read this quote the other night, and by the other night I mean last night. That said, one of the reasons you're stressed is because you're on the wrong trajectory.
One of the reasons you're stressed.
Yeah, so stress comes when you are not where you want to be, where you are being pushed outside your purpose. I'm not talking about bills and stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you don't love where you are, if you're always stressed about where you could have been, it's because you're not on the right path. It's really easy to change that for some of us. It's really difficult for the other 97%. But I think once you realize that that is the main reason that you're stressed about your life, is that you're not on the right track, then you can formulate a kind of a plan to get yourself out of it. But I mean, whatever I said, it's obviously true.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But some people chalk that up to, well, it is what it is. This is my life. I got to put food on the table. I can't take, 6 months off and run my own business. I can't do this and that. And that even adds more to the stress and more to the notion that, well, I can't wait till I retire. I can't wait till I die. I mean, I've heard people say that we can't wait till we leave this earth.
Yeah.
Because they're unhappy with the path of their life.
I know so many people that way, particularly religious people. I grew up in a very tight-knit Christian community. And I remember one of the repeating mantras was, we can't wait till we join the Lord. It's going to be better.
Amen.
After this life. And you just kind of have to trudge. You have to trudge through it. And you don't know what God's doing. But you do know that you just have to deal with what's in front of you.
So you half-ass it through this life.
Yeah, so you get to the good stuff.
So you get to the good stuff later.
Yeah. Which, as a very wise person I know, my brother, always used to call...
I thought you were going to say me.
Oh, well, you too would agree with this. He always called it deferred materialism. Because even though most good books, I think, teach you not to be materialistic, somehow there's this, you're going to get all these prizes on the other side. So you might not have money here, but you're going to have mansions in heaven. You might not have love here, but you're going to have women. Virgins in heaven. You might not have money here, but you're going to have universes in heaven. And it's like, wait a second. I thought we were supposed to be not materialistic.
My question is, if you get a mansion in heaven, does it have stairs? Because you can float to the second floor.
Would that be the stairway to heaven? Sorry.
So to my brother's point, my perspective, if you're a bus driver, you don't grow up saying, oh my God, well, maybe a boy does, but you typically don't grow up saying, I want to be a bus driver for the rest of my life, right? But you have to do it to put food on the table. If you are waiting tables at the age of 65, that is not your passion, that, oh my God, yeah, I wish I was a waiter. So I think people put up with that shit. They don't live their purpose because of money. Now, if the bus driver got paid $1 million a year, he would love it. Actually, did you know a bus driver in LA gets better money, better insurance, better dental, vision than someone else like me who has his own business? They get more job security, more money than someone like me. But to Kevin's point, see, we're going back and forth again. My kids at this age say, I want to be a bus driver. I want to be a, fireman. I want to be an astronaut, right? Because to them, that's cool. But I think at one point in your life, doing something cool and interesting to put food on the table becomes something that you think you have to do, because if you don't do it for 3 months, for 6 months, then you don't have the money to support your family, to support yourself. So at that point, people start disliking what they're doing. They start having stress. That's why I think everyone, with marriages, with careers, you could always have two of them. Okay, it's controversial.
Two marriages?
Two
Two
marriages.
careers? At the same time? Or?
No.
Okay.
No. So here's my philosophy, and it
Give
could be
it.
flawed.
That's
it can only
okay.
apply to like 1% of the population. You always learn something from the past experiences, right? So they always say that the second marriage is more successful than the first. Because when you get married at age 19, 20, 25, 35, you're vibrating at a different level. Different things are important to you. Like money is not as important as sex is or certain other things. And you base a career or you base a life with someone else on those principles that are now 20 years old. Mm-hmm. So how can you be happy? You're evolving, your soul's evolving, you're changing your taste. So why do you have to stick to that? Now, I'm not talking about people getting a divorce, but if you're in an unhappy marriage and you rate your relationship 5 out of 10, I mean, it's time to go. If you rate your career 5 out of 10, it's time to change. Because as I said in the last podcast, your second life starts when you realize you just have one. So if you're unhappy with the trajectory with your marriage and you're always unhappy, you're stressed in your marriage, that means you're on the wrong trajectory. The same thing with career. So my philosophy now that I've been pushed into divorce, not by my own choice, but someone else did for me, and I now thank them for doing it. Before I was like resenting them for doing it, but now I thank them for doing it because that massive shift in trajectory and in where I was going has given me so much more understanding about myself. And wasting time in a relationship or in a career that's not going anywhere, it would have been stressful.
Yeah.
So 2 marriages required, 2 careers required.
Is that minimum or just average?
Average, let's say average.
Because some people early on in their lives, and I think you used to see this more like 100 years ago or 200, and maybe it's because the lifespan was a little bit shorter. Although I've heard controversial things about whether the lifespan was shorter or they were just counting infant mortalities, so that lowered the lifespan significantly. So sidebar that. But I think like 100 years ago, a 22-year-old may have been able to like just be the same across the entire span of their life. I'm not sure why. So they could commit to a single marriage and make it work. Like you hear about those people who've been married for like 65 years and they're still as in love as they ever were. But I agree. I think that's a really small percentage of people. And then for everybody else, everyone's just figuring it out as they go along. And we have to keep adapting our lives to match who we are in the moment, or we're going to be living a life that matches a person we're not anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's going to cause immense stress in every area. So what does that mean then for people who are living a life based off of choices they made 20 years ago?
They can still change it. As long as it's working, it's working.
But if it's working, they're not stressed.
Yeah, if it's working, it's not stressed.
So
but
if
they
they're
feel stressed, if they don't want to go home, oh God, I got to go home to the wife now. That stresses them out. That means there's something wrong with that marriage. Oh God, I got to go to work again. Like those kind of things, like you got to be honest with yourself. You got to write it down. Day number 358. Unhappy to go to work. Unhappy to go home.
Yeah.
And that's your life. I mean, you got to make a change at that point. It's not going to get any better. Like some people have more kids. Some people have more vacations thinking it's going to.
They lean further into it.
Yeah.
I've done this too. I remember I was in a relationship and I was already expressing to some of my close friends and family, like, I don't think this is working. And then he proposed. And in that moment, I was like, you know what? We're just going to lean really hard into this. I accept. And it ended up exploding not long after that. Yeah. But I was imploding. And I was totally telling myself, I knew that it was stressing me out to the max. But for some reason, I was like, let's just lean like super much harder into this. And I see people do that with kids all the time. Like the marriage is really rocky. I'm already stressed out with my 2 kids. Let's have another one. And it's like, okay, why do we lean into it like that sometimes? What's up with that?
Let me ask you a question. Does it make it better, let's say for a career, does it make it better if you got paid more? Does it all of a sudden become less stressful Or let's say some people go get a boob job. They think, okay, it's going to be a better relationship. Now we can have better sex. Do things like money and bigger boobs or whatever it may be, does it compensate and put it back on the right path again? Like if you were a bus driver and you hated your life, but then somebody said, City of New York said, oh, you know what? Man, I'm going to give you $1 million a year to do this. Does that like change? Like, do you become now passionate about being a bus driver?
No.
Or are you passionate about making more money?
That's such a good question.
I think it would be temporary, right? Boob jobs would be temporary. Money would be temporary because you're still not living that purpose. And your soul's always going to tug at you to get out of the bus driving business or get out of that marriage because those things are just temporary. Like they just cloud your judgment for 6 months out of the year or whatever for the next 6 months. And then you go back to being a miserable bus driver who has to open the door for people who are yelling at you and pissing in the back seat. That is what temporary things do to you. They just mask it for longer, period of time. It's like people taking Tums all the time, right?
Yeah, for acid reflux.
I'm going to take some Tums. I feel better now.
Yeah. 6 months
But
later,
then
they have a
comes
hole in their
back,
stomach.
right? So your soul is tugging at you to like do something different. And those feelings are your soul saying, come on, dude, let's get out of this, routine that you don't like. But the more you deny it, its purpose, I think you would probably end up dying early. And then your soul says, well, you know what? I'm going to come back into another body and try to force that person's brain to do something that I was meant to do 300 years ago.
5 lives ago.
5 lives ago. And the person I keep going into, they're just too scared, too dumb, too, safe to do anything about it.
I 100% agree, and I would caveat it with one itty bitty exception, because I've seen this, which is when people are living their purpose and they're not making enough money doing it, but then they start making enough money doing it. And they're like, okay, this is what I needed, what I waited for. Like writers who are writing and they're like paupers. They barely have enough to pay their rent. Or actors in New York who are like just scraping by as a waiter and as an actor. And then one day they get that gig and the money is there. And they're like, that's what I've been waiting for to live my purpose and thrive. That's the only time I could see money making it okay.
Even better, yeah.
But in every other instance, it's a temporary Band-Aid on a gunshot wound.
Yeah.
Like it's not going to solve their problem.
So I'm on this dating app, right? Starts with a H, ends with an E.
Harmony.
Hinder.
No, Hinge.
Oh,
Hinge.
that one.
And this girl reached out to me a few days ago, and it wasn't a match. But in her profile, she said that I'm a starving writer. And in the meantime, I'm bussing tables at a restaurant in downtown LA, right? And I looked at her age. She was 44, 2 kids. And I thought to myself, if you put, I know she has 2 kids, she got to put food on the table. But if earlier in life she would have, before she had the kids, put in the same amount of effort into what she's doing now, to write, to go in front of people, to make things happen for herself, she would be living the life of purpose right now. But now she's bussing tables, 2 kids to feed. Obviously, she can't leave her job now. And the dream of becoming a writer is going to die inside of her.
Well, we hope not.
We hope not, but chances are it will.
And how do you know in the past you didn't do that? How do you know? Maybe
I
she
think
did.
if you are meant to do something, you'll find a way to do it. And Jason Alexander from Seinfeld.
Shallow hell.
Sure. Seinfeld.
For the young
Shallow
people.
Hell. I was driving around LA on Christmas Day because I was just bored. I went from Irvine to the Valley, Studio City, and came back. I was listening to something and he came on. And he said, a lot of people ask me, how did I become an actor? How did I do this? How did I do that? How did I start producing and whatever? He didn't wait for something to happen for him. He made those things happen for himself, right? He started going to auditions. He started standing in line at 3:00 in the morning. And he said nowadays you guys have it easy because everyone has an iPhone, everyone has a computer, everyone has, microphones that you can just plug onto yourself. You guys can start making your own movies, your own podcasts, your own destiny. Right? Why do you have to wait for someone to hire you? Why do you have to wait for someone to discover you? You have to show that
You discover yourself.
Discover yourself. So when you have a waiter at age 44 bussing tables, and she says, "My dream has always been to be a writer," maybe she should have made better decisions early on in life to put herself on that trajectory.
Well, you're speaking from personal experience.
Yeah.
Because it's not just her. I mean, it's everybody. Anyone who is trying to live their dreams at any age is just trying to get back to what they knew was their purpose the whole time. I'm doing it, we're all doing it. We're all trying to get to where our hearts are. One of my favorite authors, Stephen Pressfield, who wrote The War of Art, phenomenal book, said, "Put your butt where your heart wants to be." He says the amateur treats their passion as like a hobby that they love. The professional treats it like a job. They don't care whether they wake up in the morning loving it or hating it. They put their butt where their heart wants to be every day.
Their boat or their butt?
Both.
Okay.
But their butt. Their butt is the original lingo. And that really, I was like, whoa. Because for the last however many years I've been alive, I've always treated everything I loved as
31.
a hobby. Thank you. Wow. Actually, this is not true. When I was a kid, everything I loved, I did treat like a job. Like whether it was scribbling little books or whatever. I think kids do that naturally. But as an adult, I did treat everything I loved as a hobby, a side gig. And I just hoped, like when I wanted to be an actress, first I decided to get a real job in haircutting. And the thing is, it took so much energy to learn and have that job. And our jobs, our JOBs, take life out of us. And if you're not working really, really hard to treat what you love as another job, it falls into the background somewhere. And then, like you said, on 5 lives later, we finally decide, okay, I'm really going to do this thing now. So I think we get lucky if we decide to get serious in this life.
See, people have shit happening in their life all the time, right? So that lady, maybe the mother had cancer for like 12 years of her life growing up. Maybe she had other things to deal with. So it's not always hey, I need to get my shit together. It's if everything aligns in your life and the universe says, okay, here's a path. And that's why there's so many starving artists, actors. They're passionate. They go to every audition, but things just don't open for them. Yes, maybe some of it has to do with your belief, but I think also you have to be in the right moment in time for everything to work in conjunction together to make things happen. So like, for example, our dad, he loves being a journalist. He's 81 right now. He has lived in a tiny apartment, no real income, and that's his passion. He feels he's rich because he's doing what he loves. And I told him, hey, what if you made $1 million? Would you be happy? He's like, that'd be nice, but it's not the reason I do it. And I don't think the reason any of us do what we do is money. It's because it's our passion.
Well, yes and no. I mean, a lot of people, like us three, are doing it because we're passionate about it. But the guy working at Nissan in Torrance, California, being the accountant after 40 years of doing that, and he looks in the mirror and he sees that he's aged. He is near retirement. And his dream wasn't to become an accountant for Nissan in Torrance, California. Like, that wasn't his purpose. His purpose is something else that he is probably buried into his past. And he doesn't want to take a look at it again, because if he does, he's going to have the realization that, man, there's no time to relive that, to build that legacy anymore. And I think a lot of people, they don't understand that there's a passion inside everyone, but they choose to take a job, go to university, whatever. You know, what a scam that is. I believe it's a scam. That you have to go through 8 years of studies, get a piece of paper on the wall, have your whole life to pay for a debt that you probably didn't need because you want to do something that you didn't study wanting to do. So we have a friend, for example, he studied, well, we too, we studied meteorology, we studied computer science because society tells you got to go to school. This is what you got to do after high school. And we follow that for 8 years. It wastes 8 years of your life, your prime time that you can go after and like do things, have energy, have passion, have purpose. You wasted 8 years doing something, reading books, writing reports, and most people don't follow through on what they studied in school. And now they're in a position that they have to pay a debt back. And that debt, you got to get a job. Whether or not you like it, it's your passion or not, you got to get a job to pay for the debt that you just incurred for the past 8 years. And that becomes a vicious cycle of like, at what point do you come up for air? And most people don't. So,
But that only makes sense if you're doing something with that degree that isn't aligned with your passion. Like if you're a doctor, if you love being a doctor, you go to a school and it's not a scam at all because you're learning how to save people.
sure, that's
Right? Because it's aligned with your purpose of wanting to save lives. But if you study meteorology, but all along you're like, fuck it, man, I just want to be like an artist, then yeah, makes no sense.
imagine you went to school and the school was free. I'm not talking about socialism or anything like that. But imagine you went to school and you studied something that you really liked, and you came out of school, and after 3 months of doing it, 6 months of doing it, a year of doing it, you're like, you know what? I don't want to be a doctor because it sucks. I don't want to do it. I want to become an artist. At least you don't have a $300,000 bill waiting for you, right? You don't have to make a decision based on finances. And I think in America, unfortunately, you have to make those decisions because
Oh, definitely.
you got to put food on the table, you got to pay for your student loans, you got to put all that stuff, and then your passion and purpose gets pushed back in the line.
Yeah.
To a point that one day when you're retiring from that job you hate,
Yeah.
you're like, man, I wish I would have followed through on what I loved when I was 23 years old.
I don't think the university is a scam itself. I think people's thinking, like the parents thinking before the kid enters university, that's a flawed thing. Because if the parents were good parents, they would say, you can go here, waste 4 years of your life doing something you hate. Or you can, if you want to be an artist or you want to be an actor, let's go to acting school. Let's put you in the right place. But everybody feels like, oh, after high school, well, which university are you applying to, son?
Yeah.
I think that's a flawed. University is good for people who know what the fuck they want and they want to follow through with it. But I think it's a parent's fault for not guiding the right way.
I
agree.
I went back at 25 and I loved it only because I knew what I wanted to study.
Yeah.
I went to trade school when I was 18. I hated it because I was just doing it.
Well, the reason I
as
say
supposed to.
scam, I compare to the insurance industry. When you go to get like a bunion removed, you get the bill, it's like $80,000.
Yeah.
Like a Band-Aid costs $103, right? A textbook costs $300.
Yeah.
Like a pencil that you left at home that you go back to the bookstore is like $8. Like, why are you paying all this much money into a system that
Yeah.
is rigged?
Well, that's
flawed, or whatever?
Capitalism.
But it's
Right?
also-
Everybody
it's
wants to make
also-
money along the way.
But a $103 Band-Aid is like ridiculous. Like it raises a bar and the price for everything else in this world. And then people like me and you have to pay for it. If we go to a hospital, God forbid, if we go to university, like we got to pay for it for the rest of our lives.
That's why a lot of people say that our purpose is impeded by the capitalist society. And someone that I think of when I hear this is Nikola Tesla. That's a guy who knew his purpose probably from the moment his head stuck out of the womb. He was like, I already speak to aliens. I'm going to invent super cool tech. Unfortunately, because he didn't know how to market it, a lot of his inventions were stolen and he was blacklisted and he died alone. And all of his work, or at least a good portion of it, was disappeared. Just we don't know where it went.
Yeah.
His legacy gone. Not completely. I mean, thanks Elon Musk for naming your car brand after him, but a lot of it went missing. And that's because the systems at play impeded that purpose. Nikola Tesla died broke, which means that there's no guarantee that if you follow your purpose, you're going to be successful. There really is no guarantee of that. And maybe it's because of systems. That's why I always think, in addition to being passionate about our purpose, we also have to live with integrity, and we have to be the change we want to see, because it's not enough to follow your purpose. If you're not bringing with you this elevated, kind, compassionate, intelligent self that takes ownership of your ripple, then not everyone's going to get a chance to be fulfilled by doing what they love, because of broken systems, which are made by broken people.
I agree. And yes, to clarify, if you know what you want to do, you go to school, great. But if you're just like 80% of the kids who go to school because they think after high school they got to get a SAT score and they got to do this and they don't know why they're doing it. They just do it because society tells them to do it. I think it's a scam for them, because it robs them of time to find themselves. But meanwhile, while they're finding themselves, they're incurring debt, which then in turn they have to go find a job that they're not going to like, because they're going to be underqualified. So all that thing, you just ripple effect after ripple effect, to a point that most people at 65, they're like, they wish they would just, roll over and die already.
Yeah. Triple Shot Mindset.